Alrighty, guys, we are on to review number 4. This one is going to be a little bit more challenging. We did systems for a few weeks. I know a lot of you guys struggled with it, but again, I'm just going to do like one of each type of problem. So, yeah, let's give it a shot. If you get stuck, like I've said a jillion times, just email me, let me know, and I can help you get more information to get you back on track. Okay, so with today, we're going to do solving systems with substitution and elimination. So substitution is when you switch something out or switch something in and take something out in order to solve. So if you're looking at number 1, notice that they're both equal to y. So what we're going to do is take what y equals and substitute it in for the other y. So I'm going to have negative 3x minus 14 equals negative 2x minus 10. So now I just have the x variable and I can go ahead and solve. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways to solve these because there's variables on both sides. So your problem might look a little different than my problem if you're doing this on your own, but we should still get the same answer at the end. Okay, so how I'm saying like it's different, you could move the 3x, the negative 3x over, or you can move the negative 2x over. It really doesn't matter. So I'm going to move the negative 2x by adding 2x. So these cancel out, leaving me with a negative x minus 14 equals negative 10. Okay, but I'm still not done yet because I got to get that negative 14 out of there, and I'm going to do that by adding. So plus 14. So I've got negative x equals 4, but we're not quite done yet because you got to divide by negative 1 to get that negative out of there. So we have x equals negative 4, which is great, but remember when we're solving with substitution and elimination with systems is we're looking for two numbers, one for x and one for y. So we found our x. Now what we need to do is plug that x back in so we can solve our y. So we're going to substitute the x back in. It doesn't matter which equation, you can do the first or the second to get to the same answer. So now I'm going to have y equals negative 3, but instead of x, I'm putting negative 4 and then minus 14. So negative 3 times negative 4 gets me a 12. So 12 minus 14 gets me negative 2. So my final answer here, remember we write as a point, is negative 4, negative 2. Alright, cool. Done with number 1. Let's keep going. Number 2. Okay, number 2 is the same process. Okay, they're both set equal to y. So take what y equals and put it in your other equation. So I've got 3x minus 7 equals negative 3x plus 23. So again, now we just got to solve for x. Whether you move the 3x or the negative 3x, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to go plus 3x plus 3x. So that gets us 6x minus 7 equals 23. Okay, but we got to get rid of that 7, so we're going to add 7. So these cancel out, leaving me with 6x equals 30. And our last step is divide by 6, which gets us x equals 5, which is great, but we still need to find y. So take that 5, let's plug it back in for x. So I'm going y equals 3 times 5 minus 7. So 3 times 5 gets me 15, and 15 minus 7 gets me y equals 8. Alright, so my answer here is 5, 8. Because remember, a point goes x, y. Alright, let's keep going. Number 3. Number 3 is a little different because they're both not set equal to y. Only one is. So we're going to take what y does equal and substitute it for y in the equation above. So I would have negative 6x plus 5. But instead of writing y, I'm going parentheses negative 6x plus 13. And then equals negative 7. So now I've got both of those equations all stuffed into one. But I've got parentheses, so I need to distribute to continue solving. So my negative 6x stays the same. 5 times negative 6x gets me a negative 30x. And then I got 5 times 13, which gives me a 65. And then equals negative 7. Alright, but notice we've got like terms here. I've got a negative 6x and a negative 30x, which gets us negative 36x. And I can bring down that plus 65 and then equals negative 7. Okay, so let's move over that 65. And next by subtracting. Alrighty, so I've got negative 36x equals negative 7 minus 65 gets me a negative 72. Go ahead and divide by negative 36. Divide by negative 36. And x gets you 2. Because remember, a negative divided by negative gets us a positive. Okay, so I've got 2, but we need to plug that 2 back in for x so we can solve for y. So the easiest approach in this one is to plug it into the second equation because it's already set equal to y. So you don't have to do any solving here, you just got to simplify. So I would have y equals negative 6 times 2 plus 13. So 6 times, or negative 6 times 2 gets me negative 12, and then plus 13, so negative 12 plus 13 gets me 1, so y equals 1. So my final answer here is 2, 1. Alright, on to number 4. Number 4 is really similar to number 3, where one equation is already set equal to y. So all you got to do is take what it equals and plug it in for y in your other equation. Excuse me. So now that equation is looking like, let's see, I've got a negative 4x plus 2, but in parentheses, I'm going x minus 7, and then equals negative 24. Okay, so I've got my equation. Now we have to distribute. So 2 times x and 2 times negative 7. So I'll bring down that negative 4x. 2 times x gets me 2x, and 2 times negative 7 gets me a negative 14. And then I got equals negative 24. But we have like terms here. So negative 4x plus 2x gets me a negative 2x. And then I'll bring down that negative 14 and negative 24 here. So my next step is to get rid of that 14. So add 14 on both sides. So plus 14. So then we've got negative 2x equals negative 10. And then we're going to divide by negative 2. Okay, so after we do that, we get x equals 5. Okay, which is great, but we're still not done because we need to find what y is. So take that 5, plug it back in for x so you can find your y. So I'm going y equals 5 minus 7, and 5 minus 7 gets me negative 2. So y equals negative 2. So my final answer here, writing it as a point, is 5, negative 2. All right, so those are your substitution problems, but we got 4 more. That's right, and we're doing elimination, okay? I believe that elimination is easier, but you just do the best you can. Again, if you get stuck, let me know. Okay, so with elimination, our goal is to add down in order to cancel something out. So sometimes you might need to multiply an equation or two by a number to get something to cancel out. You got to manipulate it, but sometimes you don't have to do that. So looking at number 5, we can see we have 2x plus 9y equals 22, and then 2x minus 6y equals negative 10. So notice you've got a negative 2x and a 2x. Okay, that's what's going to cancel out. So let's go ahead, draw our line, put a little plus sign, those cancel out. Add down with everything else. So 9 plus negative 6 gets me 3y. And then 22 plus negative 10 gets me 12. And my last step here to solve for y is just to divide by 3. So then y equals 4. Okay, so I've got my y, and that was pretty quick. But now we need to plug that back in so we can find our x. So again, it does not matter which equation you plug it into. Just pretty much whatever one's easier for you. So I'm going to take that 4 and plug it in for y. So I've got negative 2x plus 9 times 4, and then equals 22. Okay, so I got a negative 2x. I'm going to multiply 9 times 4 together, which gets me 36. And then equals 22. But we got to get rid of that 36 by subtracting. So let's do that. Minus 36, minus 36. So I've got negative 2x equals 22 minus 36 gets me a negative 14. Divide by negative 2. Sorry if this handwriting is a little sloppy for you, and that gets us 7. Okay, because the negative divided negative gets us a positive. So our last step is to write our answer, and that would be a 7 and then a 4. Okay, so that same thing for number 6. So first thing we're looking at is what cancels out, my x's or my y's. So looking at your x's, you've got an 8x and a negative 10x. Those do not easily cancel out. But for your y's, you got a negative 9y and a 9y. So those will cancel out if we just add down. So I'm going to draw my line. add down. My 9y's cancel out, which is what we wanted. And then we can simplify the 8x and then plus negative 10, which gets us negative 2x. So then we've got our negative 3 plus 15, which gets me 12. And then I can go ahead and divide by negative 2 to get x equals negative 6. Okay, so I've got my x value, but I'm not done because I got to find my y. So plug that x, negative 6, back in for x and solve for your y. Okay, so I've got 8 times negative 6 minus 9y equals negative 3. Multiply your 8 times negative 6 first, which gets you negative 48. And then you got minus 9y and then equals negative 3. So let's get rid of that negative 48 by adding. So plus 48 plus 48. So I got negative 9y equals, let's see, so negative 3 plus 48 gets me 45. And then let's divide by negative 9, which gets us negative 5. So my final answer here, x goes first, is negative 6, and then y goes second, which is negative 5. All right, we're doing great. Got 2 more, and these are the hardest ones you're going to see because we have to multiply to get something to cancel out. Okay, so got to think strategically with these 2 problems because you want to make it easier for you. Okay, so looking at number 7, you've got 10x and 8x. Okay, those don't easily cancel out. For y's, you've got negative 14y and a 7y. Okay, so what's good about those 2 is they're already different signs, where one's positive, one's negative. And you just got to think, well, what can I multiply to get those to be the same number? So if you've got negative 14 as one and then 7 as the other, well, multiply that second equation that has 7 in it by 2. Because we know 7 times 2 gets us 14. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to distribute that 2 through to everything. So my first equation is going to stay exactly the same. I'm going to rewrite it. So I've got 10x minus 14y equals negative 4. And then when we multiply, we got 2 times 8x, which gets me 16x. And then we've got 2 times 7y, which gets me that 14y, which is what we wanted. And then 2 times 15 gets me 30. Okay, so now I've got my 2 equations where I can add down and easily see that those 14s are going to cancel out. Okay, so we got to simplify everything else. So 10x plus 16x gives me a 26x. And then I've got negative 4 plus 30, which gets me 26. And then our last step here is to divide. So divide by 26, and x equals 1. Okay, great. So we have our x value, but we're still not done because we got to plug it back in to find our y. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to have 10 times 1 minus 14y equals negative 4. Okay, so 10 times 1 gets me 10 minus 14y equals negative 4. Go ahead and subtract that 10 over to get rid of it. So negative 14y equals negative 14. Divide by negative 14. And y equals 1. So my answer here is just 1, 1. All right. One more left, number 8. We got to cancel out either my x's or my y's. So let's analyze and see what we're looking at. So for my x's, I've got a negative 4x and a 5x. And for my y's, I've got a negative y and a 5y. So for both of these, x and y, they are different signs, which is great. So now you just got to think, well, what can I multiply to get those to be the same? Okay, so looking at my x's, there's nothing you can multiply by 4 to get you 5, and there's nothing you can multiply by 5 to get you 4. But if you look at your y's, this is technically a negative 1. So it's like thinking, well, what can you multiply 1 by to get 5? And that's 5. So we're going to go ahead and multiply this first equation by 5. I'm going to rewrite both of those equations to the side. Okay, so I'm going 5 times negative 4, which gets me a negative 20x. And then 5 times negative 1 gets me that negative 5y. And then 5 times negative 6 gets me a negative 30. And then that other equation is going to stay exactly the same. So 5x plus 5y equals 0. All right, so let's go ahead and add down and see what happens. So again, we know that my y's are going to cancel out. That's what happens. So then I've got negative 20, excuse me, plus 5, giving me negative 15x. And then we've got negative 30 plus 0, which gets us negative 30. And then our next step is to divide by that negative 15. And that gets us 2. So I've got x equals 2, which is great. Now we just got to plug that back in so we can solve for y. So let's plug that back in for x. All right, so I got negative 4 times 2 minus y equals negative 6. Negative 4 times 2 gets me negative 8 minus y equals negative 6. Add that 8y, or 8 over, excuse me. So I got negative y equals 2. But I'm not done because I got to get rid of that negative in front of y. So divide by negative 1, and y equals negative 2. So my final answer for this problem is, well, let's see, 2, negative 2. All right. Like I said, that's a lot. You'll only have a few of those on your final, but try the best you can. All right, see you guys later.